just so everybody knows, we're now going live and we're going to be recording as well.
Okay, yeah, and by my count, we're still short on our quorum. So we'll give a couple more members a chance to join in. There's Nathan. So that I think gives us a quorum.
Great.
Yeah, Barry, I'm expecting Barry to call in.
Yeah.
And Roberta as well. Dr. Abdul said she might be able to join us late. She's moving one of her sons.
Okay. Well, we'll give Barry and Roberto a minute or two here, and then we'll get started. But as we do, just make sure you have the agenda in front of you, and any documents that were sent by email, we'll be referring to those throughout the meeting. Oh, there's a phone call. Is that Barry?
No, it's Siri. Happy Saturday.
Siri. Oh, okay. Welcome, Siri.
Hi, Siri. Joe Kuiper here.
Hi, how are you?
All righty.
We're going to give it another minute or so, Siri, and then we're going to get started. Waiting on a couple more. There's Roberto. Welcome, Roberto. All right, I guess I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and just remind you that you have an agenda before you. You should have also received a copy of the minutes, and I'd like to ask for any corrections to the minutes at this time. Hearing none, I will approve the minutes. So the first report we have on our agenda is mine. And I'd like to spend a little time just kind of talking about the meeting here that we're holding. Obviously, we're still under the emergency declaration, and so therefore we're having to do this virtually. And I appreciate your time and your willingness to negotiate the technology to get here this morning. I actually think this has worked quite well, but if for some reason I'm the one who receives the storm and I get knocked offline, Art will take over the role of chair. And I especially want to thank Zach for serving as our technical support here. We're live streaming to YouTube so others can watch it in the public space. I think there is a silver lining to being able to communicate and meet this way, in that I see a very high participation from the board. Last meeting we had 14 out of 15 trustees present, and I thought that was a really good turnout. And I think it's also, like I said, given an opportunity for the public to listen in on our meetings, and that's always good. The challenge, of course, is that there's less opportunity to socialize in the breaks of our meetings or before or afterwards. And so I think that's something we'll have to think about moving forward. And I want to say a little bit about that and how I think we can improve our work together between meetings. But right now at my house, what we're doing is trying to get ready for school. My daughter will be going back to UVA, and I'll be standing in front of students in less than 2 weeks. And so all of this is, going going to be an interesting time, continue to be an interesting time for us. We have had the opportunity to enjoy the outdoors a little bit this summer, and most recently went to Natural Tunnel State Park, which if you haven't been there is a fantastic natural feature. We're probably, maybe more of us are familiar with Natural Bridge, but Natural Tunnel is near Gate City. It's one of our wonderful state parks, and I certainly highly recommend it. And the surrounding area along the Clinch River, of course, is well known for its biodiversity. And I think all of us are discovering the value of nature. And I think I said something about this at our last meeting. I believe that's an opportunity for the museum to continue to connect and reach out, even virtually, because of people's renewed interest or awareness, or the respite that nature provides to us under these conditions. And I especially want to recognize the efforts of the museum. We'll hear more about this in our meeting today, but certainly, some of the presence on social media has really helped, I think, and continues to bring people to the museum. Mentioning, a couple of the efforts like Ben in Nature series and Adam Pritchard's work on ancient life, and even the Museum Minute that the education program staff are doing. And so these kinds of things I think are really relevant, and I hope that they will continue even after we're able to meet in person. As I said, I want to come back to socializing. Certainly look forward to the opportunity to meeting you face to face again. But in the meantime, I think I want to emphasize the relevance of committees and our committee work. And I want to point out, of course, that I shared with you the appointments for the coming year. You should have that document in your email inbox. We have a number of new members, and I would encourage the chairs of the committees to be welcoming to our new members as they make the transition to understanding the culture of our board. Those committee meetings are where I believe, a lot of the work should happen and a lot of our communication can happen. And I know that some committees are meeting fairly regularly, some less regularly. And I would just again encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to participate virtually. I believe, and I'm going to offer Zach Ryder's help here. If you need technical support for setting up a Zoom meeting like this, please reach out to the museum. All of our committees, by the way, are now composed of, I think, at least 3 board members. So we do need to pay attention to the FOIA requirements and make sure our meetings get announced and so forth 3 days in advance. But again, if you just work through the museum, they will help you take care of that. And I do think it's valuable for us to keep active with our committees as we're moving through this time. And I look forward to hearing reports from the committees in the coming part of our meeting. So that really, for me, concludes what I wanted to say in my chairman's report. I'd like to ask for the treasurer's report. And I think Jennifer is not with us. I believe Nathan is prepared to go through the treasurer's report.
Yeah, I'm here, and I will try to step through the summary financial document here from the end of fiscal year 20, and I'll just ask for Jonathan and Joe to step in with any needed details along the way. Just some highlights if you're looking, and the document we're looking at now is the Virginia Museum of Natural History Monthly Statement of Income and Expenses for the period ending June 30th, 2020. One good note is that despite the pandemic shutting down the museum, admissions to the museum still came in over budget, over expectations. So that's great news. It means we were really on a record pace there. And then if you just look overall, we still had, like 3.8 in operating fund revenue and 3.4 million in operating expenses. So an income balance of over $400,000. So the museum still is in what I consider to be pretty good financial shape. But if you have specific questions, or if there's other highlights, Joe or Jonathan, you'd like to point out, please do so.
Hey, can I ask Jonathan to walk through the federal funds line item there?
Sure, I can handle that.
So the federal funds is really grants, and so IMLS and NSF grants that we've received through the years. Some of the funds go back to 2018. The most recent was the IMLS grant that rolled over for the core data. So that includes renovations and personnel that were dedicated to storage of the core samples coming in for the geologic study. We had a few interns finishing up that this year, and then with Jim rolling out, we kind of put a lid on that project for right now. Total spent, there's two grants. One was roughly 120,000, and then out of this one that's rolled over here, it's 21,654 have been spent. You're only going to see year to year what was requested. So for this particular grant, you have to spend it first, and then you ask for a refund from that. So that's what you'll see on the balance sheet for us. The total is a placeholder going forward, and then it gets looked at every year as far as what's available.
So just to add to that, we're in good shape. We've gotten back every dollar we've spent so far in the project. The final report for IMLS, which is the Institute for Museum and Library Sciences, has been submitted for that project. So everything's in good shape there. For those of you who are new, we had for many, many years stored a very large rock collection. These are rock cores that go down thousands of feet into the earth. Offhand, I can't remember how many linear miles of rock core this represents, but it's quite impressive. Nonetheless, it was stored off-site, and we decided it was time to bring that home. And so we actually fixed up one of the buildings associated with the Douglas Avenue property. That project is pretty well wrapped up.
Are there any questions about the Treasurer's report? I'll just make one comment that I've noticed in the expenses category. A couple of the ones that we are fairly low in terms of percent relate to, I believe, like professional development and kind of professional workplace issues, like subscriptions. I suppose those are professional subscriptions, and travel and participation in the professional workplace development. And so I just want to make sure that we're not shortchanging our professional staff on development and access to professional resources. Do you want to comment on that, Joe? Or
yeah, I do encourage staff to take advantage of travel opportunities, and so the curators are a prime example. Going to various very discipline-specific conferences. To my knowledge, several of the folks that are with us now are actually going to be attending virtual conferences here this fiscal year. I'd also add that Christy's team is set up. Christy, can you walk through? I know there were a few that you had mentioned recently in terms of your team doing virtual attendance with upcoming.
Yes, excuse me. We actually participated in a Smithsonian virtual professional development opportunity last month. It was a 3-day session, really nice. And then in November, we are going to be participating in the VAST virtual professional development as well, the Virginia Association of Science Teachers.
Yeah, so those are some examples. So I think it's part of our culture. I think we're good there. This year, of course, things are going to be different. Hopefully in the next fiscal year, we might start going back to in-person conferences and professional development and so forth.
right. So what would have otherwise been travel expenses can be used to participate virtually in these conferences. I think there's lots of opportunities out there to encourage the staff, as you sound like you do, to take advantage of those. So any other questions for the Treasurer's report? Hearing none, I'll make note that we've accepted that. I probably need to go back regarding the minutes. I think we probably need to approve those minutes. I've failed to do that at the time. So with any votes, we're going to have to do roll call. So I'm not sure who's prepared to do a roll call for us. Joe, I'm asking for a roll call vote on the minutes, taking a step back in our agenda.
Okay, Carol,
Aye.
Cord,
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
Faye? Faye, did you vote?
Oh, I didn't hear you. Yeah, aye.
Okay, gotcha. Lisa,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Roberto,
Aye.
Siri,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and I have one other number down here that I didn't see come up. Is that one of our trustees that came in?
It's Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, Michael, welcome. We're
Thanks.
doing a roll call vote.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I heard a unanimous vote in approval of the minutes. So let's go to our executive director's report. Joe, may we have the executive director's report?
Sure. And I'm sorry if everyone would just hold tight a second. Dr. Abdul Baki is attempting to connect, and I just wanted to forward the link to her. All right. Hopefully she'll join us here momentarily. So what I wanted to do is basically walk through, to start with, kind of an overview of our response to the pandemic and the emergency declaration. You've gotten a number of emails from me over time about what we're doing, particularly last spring, but just want to tell you kind of what we've been doing and what we're up to. As you're aware, we're open we're open Friday through Sunday. And we feel that that's a good strategy for the time being. We're serving about 100 or so patrons per weekend. So, but that being said, please keep in mind that we really are confident that there's no way we're gonna be able to run large scale in-person festivals this year. So that's really gonna put a damper on our numbers. But we have been getting some regular attendance during the weekends. And that being said, being closed to the public Monday through Thursday, we have seen an observable decline in our utility spending. So for the moment, until anything changes, we're going to continue with that strategy. We've already talked about the heavy social media presence, but associated with that, we're also, we've worked with Mary Handy and the foundation and some other folks, as well as a number of staff. We're prepping approximately September's membership drive. We want to keep out in front of the community, not just in terms of what we're providing, but we also need to let them know of our needs. So we've had folks record a number of themed short videos, about 30 seconds, and we'll be streaming them out piecemeal over time as a way to get people behind our work here. We're also prepping some new virtual resources. Christy might go into deeper detail on this, but we're working with some talented young guys who are going to help us develop some three-dimensional tours of the museum that would be in support of Christie's programs. And these tours would be Science SOL based in kind of their individual themes. So that's something new that we're working towards. And in the meantime, when we have downtime without people in the exhibit galleries, we've been taking the time to update some of our exhibits. So the most significant of which is Wild Watersheds. And we're probably around next week, we'll have our Trout in the Classroom program back up, except this is going to be quite a bit more elaborate than what we had last time. So when we get that set up, we'll see about circulating some photos and video of that. So I think that'll be an exciting new component of what's going on here. And just as an update, I think, again, you're aware of this, but next Tuesday, 18 August, the General Assembly goes back into session. We hope to learn more about revenue projections, the current status of the state budget, and so forth. So after we get any kind of news, we'll be sure to send a synopsis to the Board of Trustees. However, all that being said, I just want to make sure to point out one thing. I mean, everyone has been struggling with how to adapt to this new world. However, I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that even though we lost more than 1/4 of our last fiscal year. There's a number of very significant steps that were taken for this organization. For instance, in October, we had the largest ever festival that we had with 2,700 in attendance for the October Dragon Festival. That was followed up with a successful Ice Age Festival in January. So when things are appropriate for large gatherings, we do want to go back to that model. It was something that we didn't just have impact with, but we had great sustainable impact. And thanks to Ryan and his team, he obtained some grant dollars and supported those festivals to ensure that our expenses were paid in advance. So that way the dollars that were made on those festival days were profit for us. We'll get more to this at the research and collections meeting, but also during the last fiscal year, we secured Dr. Hayden Bassett's employment. So I think Art will be covering that. We opened the Wild About Cats exhibit, which was a great, very popular exhibit. We, of course, completed the VMNH Waynesboro campus pre-planning study, and we made it into the budget for the campus detail planning. We still remain within the budget. We just don't know where things stand quite yet in terms of actual funding. And lastly, we completed the 5-year strategic plan for 2020 to 2025, which we will modify as needed as the landscape going forward becomes more clear. So these are some big, picture accomplishments. That also doesn't really speak to the day-to-day accomplishments. When you looked at how busy the schedule was for our educators throughout the year and how packed it would have been during the summer, the popularity of those programs are evident, right? If we look at individual curators, I think, again, Art and so forth, we'll mention that during the research and collections component. I mean, there are some awesome publications, collections have grown, and that's a really good sign for our organization. So I don't want to say last fiscal year was lost or compromised. I mean, maybe we could have done more, sure, but I think even standalone with that 3/4 of a true fiscal year, there was quite a bit done. So, and I reviewed yesterday with the foundation board some of our upcoming strategic plan initiatives, and we still want to keep our eye on those initiatives. So I made sure to give them a timeline about a few of those projects that we would really like them to be involved in, both in terms of strategizing how we get to success, but also eventually in raising funds to make those projects happen. So I'll just say that I take this opportunity to say thank you to the staff. It was really hard at first, in particular, trying to get some clarity and people working the best they can. And I think we're in a rhythm now, and I think that will provide momentum that when the pandemic is behind us, and we can get closer to what our operations look like prior to the emergency declaration, that momentum will allow us to reach further into success. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to bring that up. A lot of other projects are we're working on them, but they will be covered in the upcoming committee reports.
Any questions for Joe regarding the executive director report?
I have a quick question, Joe. One of the things that I have been working on with other colleagues is the CARES Act and the funds that have been made available through the CARES Act for museums in particular. IMLS, for example, is sort of the conduit for those. Is any of that money available to you all? The reason I'm asking is if the next batch makes it out, if there is some kind of an agreement and more support is forthcoming, is it possible that could be a source for you all?
Yes, we did make a stab at the IMLS CARES Act funds. Unfortunately, our proposal was turned down. They said it was either a 13 or 17% success rate amongst proposals. So even though there was a lot of money, there was a lot of requests. So so we still have that proposal. We might use that again, slightly modified, because I think the strength of our, say, virtual programming and stuff is much more informed now that we've dipped our toe in that water as deeply as we did. So we may go ahead and modify that and make another stab at it, assuming more funds become available.
Other questions for Joe? Joe, I did notice that we have an advancement report in our packet. I don't know if that's something you want to go over now, if you want to reserve that for another time in our agenda.
No, this is just as good a time as any, I think, to let Ryan walk through the year-end advancement numbers, because not only do we have numbers in there about finances, both on our revenue side and the foundation side, but also some demographics. So Ryan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. So yeah, you all have the advancement report in your packet. As far as the numbers, like Joe mentioned, even though we effectively lost the last quarter of the year, we did finish very strong, both in terms of visitation, revenue, but also on the foundation side as well. So just looking at visitation, we were close to 29,000, again, losing a third of the year and a few of the bigger festivals. As far as admissions, like Joe mentioned, we were over our goal there, which was great. Obviously, retail sales are back in a limited form now, but that's greatly reduced with the closing of our cafe due to safety concerns and really lack of demand at this point. On the foundation side, we did finish very strong as far as memberships and Discovery Fund. What we did when we had to cancel the gala was offer donors, whether it be ticket holders or table sponsors, the opportunity to either, number one, get a discount, number two, roll it over to next year, or number three, go ahead and shift that money to Discovery Fund support. And overwhelmingly, that's what they did, was provide that money for Discovery Fund. So we were able to communicate the importance of why we have the Discovery Fund, what it supports, and how it's critical to our mission. And so the donors, really embraced that. And so we finished Discovery Fund over last year, which was great. We just got news that we received a grant, a $20,000 grant from the Patterson Foundation Trust. We had been in talks with them about doing school group scholarships for in-person school groups. Obviously that changed kind of last minute. So the timing worked out well, where before we had to actually submit the full proposal, we were able to talk with them and kind of talk it through. And what we came up with was support for virtual programming. So it fits very well with Christie's programs, obviously the curator programs. And it's very broad. So we're able to do a lot of things with that money over the coming year. And we also have a portion of it for marketing as well, because obviously if we can't get the word out to folks about the opportunity, it doesn't really do much good. So the check is in the mail, so I've been told. So more to come on that. That's very exciting. I also want to mention we are implementing a new fundraising and marketing system. So we currently use what's called Razor's Edge, which is kind of the industry standard donor database system. But we are upgrading to a cloud-based version of that, which is also going to include a lot of things like, an events module where we can do online ticketing, pre-registration, everything from timed entrance to reserve seating. So it'll really help us kind of streamline and tailor what we do. But also with that comes a lot of marketing tools. So we'll be able to do a lot more email marketing with integrated opportunities for both donations, again, registrations for events, things like that. Christie's programs can be all pre-registration online, no paperwork involved. So that's very exciting. And just mention too that we are continuing to work with all of our donors, whether it be individuals, companies, foundations, to stay in communication. So we don't want folks to just hear from us when we need money, but also we want to keep them updated on what we're doing, where we're at as far as reopening and upcoming activities. Just want to touch on demographics as well. So the report you have is obviously through June 30th. And even with the last quarter being kind of a wash, we saw very similar demographics as far as close to 70% of the visitors were from outside Martinsville, Henry County, which is obviously great. What we've seen since we reopened is about half and half. So about half of our visitors are coming from Martinsville, Henry County, and the other half are really scattered. We've seen a lot of sort of northern North Carolina visitors, but primarily it's within a 50-mile radius. Folks are not traveling as much, which is not surprising. So we will keep an eye on the demographics, obviously on the donations coming up, and yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Ryan, this is Barry.
Hey, Barry.
Hey, you had a 33-page advancement report at the Development and Marketing Committee, and I wondered if you have sent that out to the entire board. I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Sorry, Barry. What Barry's mentioned, and every year we do an advancement plan, which include when we say advancement, that kind of includes everything: fundraising, marketing, exhibits, museum rentals, all these things kind of tie together. So that was from fiscal year 2020. With fiscal year 2021 being kind of a unique year, we are actually updating that. And Barry, I hope to send that out early next week. We're just putting the final touches on it.
Good.
So
It's very good.
Yeah, it kind of provides us with the roadmap. Obviously, we're not totally locked to it, but it gives, it identifies our audiences, strategies, tactics, all these different things. So be happy to share that with the board.
Good.
Any other questions or comments for Ryan at this point about advancement?
Just a quick suggestion, Tom.
Yeah, sure, Roberto.
I'd like to encourage Ryan and your folks to if there's any prepackaged stuff that you can send us that we can then send out to our contacts and social media folks. You know, the old they'll tell two friends model.
Right.
If we get stuff rolling out there these days, I know when some of the Friday webinars were being held, I copied that onto a couple of family groups up here, and I'm pretty sure a bunch of folks jumped in on something they wouldn't have known otherwise, since obviously the geography's hard, but with everybody being remote and going stir crazy at home, these online things really catch on.
Thank you, Roberto. And I know Zach is making furious notes as well. So we appreciate that.
And I'll just remark, and I know that often you have the upcoming events in this advancement report, that we do have an upcoming event in Waynesboro at the Wayne Theater. Joe's going to be talking about the museum project, the initiative to create a campus in Waynesboro, and maybe we're going to hear some more from the advocacy committee about that. But just want to encourage people to participate online, because that will also be live streamed, and Zach will be helping us with that, with the together with the museum support. I mean, with the theater support.
What's the date on that again, please?
Joe, second Tuesday, September.
Third Tuesday.
Third Tuesday.
I believe it's the 15th. Yeah, September 15th, 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're and Joe is helping to organize this series that we've done in the past for the public at the theater, and it will include a number of our curators as well. So we'll be doing monthly talks to get people excited and more interested and aware of the initiative to create this campus in Waynesboro. And I'll just remark, as I've remarked before, that in the advancement report, maybe because I'm a visual person, I like the map and I like seeing the statistics on where our visitors are coming from. And so I think it's really good to see that we're getting, you know, some statewide visitors, and you know, drawing from outside the state, North Carolina primarily, obviously because of the proximity, but those are all good things. And I hope we can do something similar when we track our distance learning programs and virtual learning. I know that you also track how many people participate, not at the museum, but through distance opportunities.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions about advancement? Hearing none, I'll recognize the chair of the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, Faye Cooper, to give us a report from her committee.
Good morning. I hope you all can hear me. I have a terrible microphone. Am I coming through?
Just.
Sure.
Just
stay close to it, I think.
Okay, I'll stick it right here.
There you go.
Well, good morning, everyone. And I just want to refer you to the report in Joe's packet. Thank you, Joe, for getting that out to folks. But I want to highlight a few things. We continue to meet monthly in Waynesboro, our advocacy committee, which of course our main objective for those of you who are new to the board is to establish a campus for our museum, which is going to be really perfectly located in the central Virginia. And we have, actually, I wanted to introduce two new committee members, Siri Russell. Siri, you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, welcome to our committee. We look forward to seeing you in September at the September 1st meeting. Glad you could join us. And also we have invited Maggie Van Huss, who is a well-known Waynesboro educator, science educator, and we're delighted to add her to our committee. As Joe mentioned in his report, we were included in the state budget for our final planning efforts, but that is pretty much on hold, as are all capital projects in Virginia right now. But in the meantime, we continue to plan for a number of activities. One you just heard about, Joe being the next speaker up at the Wayne Theater, and he and others with the museum, Tom especially, have been very engaged with Wayne Theater in providing programming that further promotes and inspires folks in the Waynesboro, Augusta area about what we're up to. We also had some funding left over from the pre-planning funds, state funds, and we are using those to develop some short videos, which Ryan and others are working on, and Jonathan. And we're very excited about that. We'll certainly keep you posted. I think Roberto's suggestions are a really good one. And if we can, once those are complete, we can get those out to folks so that they can extend them to their mailing list, Facebook list and such. We also hope to do a dino drive-through this fall, similar to the one that the museum held in Martinsville. And we're very excited about that. You'll be hearing more about that. So we feel like that's another great way to engage and inform the local community here. And of course, we're trying to stay in contact with our local legislators as well through this time, so that they don't forget about us, and they know that we're in the wings waiting for our funds so we can complete the design work for the project. And just one other thing I'd mention, we are planning to convene what we are calling focus groups this fall of educators and natural resource professionals to help us kind of finalize some of our design plans for the exhibits within the new facility. So there's still a lot going on, and as Joe and others have mentioned, the COVID is not holding us down. We're continuing to work towards implementing plans and looking forward to the future. So that's it, unless somebody has something to add or a question.
Are there any questions for Faye or the committee?
Faye, can you include me in those focus groups?
You are.
Oh, thank you.
We just haven't gotten around to contacting you yet, but definitely you're on the list, most certainly. And actually, Carol, if you think of anyone else, I think Thomas suggested several people from JMU, but you may know of others just in, even outside of JMU who would be good, complements to these efforts. So thanks.
We have several areas, kind of thematic areas of museum exhibits around VMNH Waynesboro campus that we're pulling together various focal groups to help us expand the exhibit narrative that we have, and kind of pick everyone's brains for the hidden jewels and whatnot that might be a great complement to what we've already developed. Well, the reason we're doing this is, one, to keep everyone involved, of course, but wouldn't it be nice if when we go into detailed planning, let's say it's next year, that we've already expanded our exhibit narrative and we go into that much more prepared.
Any other questions for Faye? Hearing none, I'd like to recognize the chair of our Facilities Operations Committee, Barry Dorsey. Barry.
Hi, good
do you
morning.
have a report for us?
I do. I couldn't get you on Zoom because Zach says that my antivirus doesn't or works, and I was prevented from getting you on Zoom. But I'm here, and I hear listening to you audibly, and so I'm happy to give the Facilities Committee report. I'm in the office, and I'm across the hall from the Driver Improvement Clinic, which is meeting here this Saturday morning. And basically, we have 3 projects involved. I'm just waiting to get reappointed by the governor and to have a committee report, committee meeting rather. We have 3 projects: the Pavilion, the Douglas Avenue project, and the Waynesboro campus. Faye has covered the Waynesboro campus advocacy committee report, and I will cover the Pavilion and the Douglas Avenue committee report. Joe has already covered most of the operations report, and my committee is facilities or operations committee report, and we'll see what happens when the governor reappoints me. Anyway, all the capital projects, as Faye has already mentioned, are on hold, and that includes the Pavilion and the Douglas Avenue project. The Pavilion is a good example of what we're doing, and I'll turn it over to Joe and let him talk about the Pavilion and the Douglas Avenue project. Joe, are you there?
Yep. Just want to point out that while state capital projects are on hold, that has to do with new money. With the Pavilion, of course, that was all soft money. We raised all the funds for that.
Right.
So, Department of General Services has the architectural plans, and basically they're going through the very fine details. It has nothing to do with design or function. It has to do with things like lighting, exit signs, stair width, a lot of those details. So we're just waiting. We're prepared to execute an RFP for a contractor to start the construction process. So hopefully that comes very soon. And similarly with Douglas Avenue, since that's a maintenance reserve project, we are permitted to move forward with that. We do have a contractor identified, and so he has his plans for full replacement of the Douglas Avenue roof submitted to Department of General Services. So it's kind of the same situation. We're just waiting on General Services to green light the project, and then from there it's basically letting the contractor do the work.
When Richmond greenlights the projects, we are ready to move forward, and Joe and staff have already gotten everything in order.
I would say that's true.
Okay.
And Joe and Barry, I want to recognize the role that the foundation has played. As Joe mentioned, it's soft money that has gotten us over the hump in terms of the Pavilion project, and now we're just awaiting the state approvals. And certainly want to thank Mary Handy, who's on the call as the chair of the foundation, for her work, and the members of her board for pushing this project over the top. And I don't know if Barry wants to add anything to that. There may be an opportunity to say a few words, if you would, Mary.
Okay, yeah. As y'all know from everything that's been reported this morning, we are on hold. And I just want to point something out to you guys. I was sitting here and I noticed I have a dragon from Dragon Festival over my shoulder. Just a little funny thing to point out. But anyway, as far as the Pavilion, there's actually 2 parts to it that Ryan and Joe have been mentioning to us as well. When they were doing an evaluation of some of the items related to the Pavilion, it was determined that the stairs were not up to code coming up to the Pavilion from the street. So we're actually tapping into some maintenance reserve. So that's actually a win for the foundation, because that gives us some extra funds that we aren't going to have to spend on stairs that we can further use towards the Pavilion. Joe and Ryan have done a good job of keeping in touch with the donors who have taken part in the Pavilion. the Harvest Foundation. Gosh, I can't remember everybody, but there's a long list that they've been having to keep up to date as to where we stand. And everyone understands the fact that we are on hold until the museum is able to move forward with the RFP for the contractors. And, you know, we look forward to the other projects that are moving forward, you know, Douglas Avenue getting to move forward. So once that's done, it's baby steps, but, you know, along the line, it gives us an opportunity within the next 3 to 5 years. We hope to move our early childhood learning center from the over to the library space and continue to move forward with other opportunities within the museum to refurbish and potentially draw more people in, giving them access to other, I guess, mediums of exploration for the kids and other ways for them to learn.
This is Barry. Let me just thank Mary and the foundation for all their work, and they've been very important in the process and of the pavilion and of the Douglas Avenue project too.
Thank you.
Just to make sure everyone, especially if you're new to the board, the project that Mary is talking about, we do have a physical library that we want to take good care of, but frankly said, it isn't accessed like it was in the old days. So one of the motivations behind rehabbing Douglas Avenue and stabilizing it is to create a proper environment over there. So after the roof, there's some other projects we'll work on, but that will allow us to properly store the physical library over in Douglas Avenue, which can still be accessed. But then that opens up some prime real estate that we can turn into the aforementioned Early Childhood Learning Center, or whatever it's called in the end. That's kind of a name holder right now. So, and that's detailed in our strategic plan.
Very good. Any other questions for Operations or Facilities Committee? Let me recognize then that we're going to take a report from the Finance Development Marketing Committee, and I don't see Jennifer Burnett on the call, so I'm guessing that one of the other committee members is going to provide that for us. Is that you, Nathan?
That's correct. So the Finance and Development / Marketing Committee, we met this past Monday afternoon. A review of the final fiscal year 20 financials, which you looked at earlier in the meeting, that led to a discussion about the museum's festivals, which of course have been canceled due to the pandemic and are resulting in lost revenues, but mostly how it's allowed the museum staff to work on new concepts to maintain contact with the public, including these drive-through shows that you've heard mentioned a couple times already. Sounds like the drive-through dinosaur show was a success despite the weather, and it actually was a little overpopular from what I've heard, leading to some traffic issues, but it did serve as a good test run for the kinds of interactive activities the museum can conduct during the pandemic. And I believe Faye already mentioned too that there's discussions about holding the similar dinosaur show up in Waynesboro. And then I guess it will be slightly different just because we won't have to deal with the particular layout of the museum parking lot, but I'm sure there will still be issues that need to be worked out there. Ryan updated the committee, something we've already covered today about the new Blackbaud fundraising and donor communication system the museum is implementing in conjunction with the foundation. It will expand some of our capabilities and record further data for analysis. Joe gave an overall overview of the alternative programming experiences that the staff are working on, including virtual programming that's supported by that aforementioned $20,000 grant from the Patterson Foundation, a membership drive, a potential scavenger hunt / museum rental opportunity, and of course, further drive-through shows as discussed. This led to some discussion about marketing and targeting new populations, including materials and opportunities in non-English languages. And that sort of led to a broader discussion of the entire marketing approach for the museum, which the committee will continue to pursue at future meetings. And of course, capital projects, which were discussed, of course, we've kind of gone through a lot of that already today. Indications that the pavilion are ready, just requiring the final approval from the Department of General Services. The roof at the Douglas Avenue building is being replaced using maintenance reserve funds. And then the Waynesboro campus is seeing progress through the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee via focus groups that will help to expand the current exhibit narrative. So the placement of this particular board report is kind of good because almost all this stuff gets covered in previous reports or in the executive director's report. So it seems like we're at least talking about relevant topics.
Excellent. Yeah, and I thank you, Nathan, for serving on that committee, and want to recognize Roberto too as a new committee member. Of course, Mary Handy represents the foundation on that. So we have a lot of opportunity to cross communicate between the foundation. The staff is also represented on that committee and our board. Are there any questions at this point?
The new marketing system and the museum website, is that called Razor's Edge, Ryan?
Yes, Barry, that's correct.
Excuse me.
Okay, so let me recognize Art Evans as the chair of our Research and Collections Committee for a report.
Okay, thank you. I want to remind everyone that all of the activities and accomplishments of the curators this past quarter are summarized in the Research and Collections Committee report included in your board packets. And I encourage everyone to review this document. In spite of the pandemic, Doctors Ivanov, Moncrief, and Pritchard have continued to conduct and publish their research and curate their collections, all the while increasing their level of engagement through a series of videos first posted on Facebook and archived on the museum's webpage. This series includes Tales of Ancient Life, which is a video series that features Dr. Pritchard talking about microbiolite, Triassic fossils, and fielding paleo-themed questions received from third graders in Maryland, among other things. Another series, a part of the series is Ask an Expert, which features museum curators, both past and present, fielding questions from the public. Questions answered thus far include: how many sharks are there in the ocean? How much gold is in the earth? And why do some insects have wings and while others do not? Dr. Ivanov participated in a live instructional video on preparing hard-bodied insects for the museum's collection. And if those of you who are unfamiliar with insect collections or the effort that goes into just preparing a specimen before it goes into the research collection, it's well worth a look. Dr. Moncrief noted that the first 9-banded armadillos have been found. They've been in Virginia, and they've been expanding their range for a while now. And both of these were documented as roadkills, and now they are specimens in the research collection. And it's interesting, this comes on the heels of recent observations that porcupines have recently returned to Virginia after nearly a 200-year absence. So animals are definitely on the move. Ranges are expanding, contracting. It's a very interesting time, certainly, to be a zoologist in this part of the world. Administrator of Science Ben Williams launched a series of engaging essays entitled Ben in Nature that highlights Virginia's biodiversity, covers everything from animals, plants, and fungi. And again, these all make their initial debut on Facebook and are archived on the museum's webpage. And finally, Dr. Hayden Bassett officially joined the museum family at the end of August. As our archaeologist. Dr. Bassett joined our meeting and gave a brief overview of his international research program. And he will continue the museum's long tradition of zooarchaeology while developing new research programs, including studies of sites along the Smith River and enslaved communities in Virginia. And I'm going to take full advantage of the fact that Dr. Bassett is with us here today and give him an opportunity to speak for himself. So Dr. Bassett, welcome.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. So I'm Hayden Bassett, and I look forward to joining the museum at the end of this month. My first day is August 31st, so I'm slowly making the shift from Norfolk to Martinsville right now, so everything's going smoothly. But as was mentioned, I look forward to sort of shifting my research back to the Martinsville, Henry County area as well. So, once I get started, I will move hopefully pretty quickly into a research program that really focuses on the Greater Dan River drainage, focused specifically on sites along the Smith River. But that also includes both the very rich Native American history in the region, but also some of the more recent history in the 18th and 19th century with some of the enslaved communities that occupied the area. So beyond that, there's a few areas where I'll continue my international research program, but otherwise it's going to be focused on the greater sort of Martinsville, Henry County area.
Well, Dr. Benson, thank you so much for joining us today, and we welcome you to the museum family and look forward to the fruits of your research.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's all I have today.
Any questions for Art? I'll add my welcome to Hayden to the museum, and look forward to meeting you sometime on the Smith River. You might suspect that I have ulterior motives to that. I'm a fisherman, so I enjoy being outdoors on the water, but I certainly would be interested to hear what you find at some of these sites.
Likewise, I'm also a fly fisherman, so we can share secrets on that.
Sounds good. Anything for Art? Hearing none, let me go ahead and recognize Cord Cothran as the chair of our Education Public Programs Committee.
Good morning. Good morning. So in our meeting yesterday, a few things came up. Obviously, with we're not doing as much at the museum itself, so our distance learning is taking off. A lot of the stuff that I had for my presentation this morning, everybody at one point or another has picked a little bit of stuff off. So Ryan was able to obtain a $20,000 grant from the Patterson Foundation. That was for stuff. Now it's going more towards our virtual. Christy has really upped the game on our social media presence, Facebook, videos, and so forth like that. You had mentioned earlier about the professional development for our workers, and they're still doing that. And they actually just did something with the Smithsonian in July. So all that is continuing to go on and everything. And for our, the one question I didn't get an answer to or didn't ask was for our drive-through, we had 101. Was our numbers, was that people or was that vehicles?
All right, so for the reptile drive-through, it was 101 visitors within 36 vehicles, I think it was.
Yeah, because that was really neat that when we ran through capacity, one of the questions brought up yesterday at the committee was, how did that happen? And it was basically a timed event. And they knew that with the remaining number of vehicles left in the cars, there was no way that we would have been finished in time. So we did hit the capacity there. So we're learning a little bit more there on maybe the next go round on what we're going to do and everything. So, and then as far as at the museum itself, Christy was saying that the trout tank is being installed as we speak. So that's getting good. So the joke there was that Tom wasn't allowed around the trout tank to fish at any time in the future. So, but that's pretty much the report from the Education Committee.
Thanks, Cord. And I like them a little bigger than they are in the trout tank anyway. So, any questions about Education Public Programs Committee? Certainly I want to point your attention to the tables that they use to summarize the outreach at the museum and distance learning programs that are in that 2-page report. Obviously, they've been heavily impacted by the COVID situation, but we're hopeful that maybe we'll be able to get into some of the schools, since many of them are going to be relying on online activities here in the coming year and probably for the foreseeable future. So any questions for Cord or Christy? Hearing none, our next thing is to go into closed session. And so there's some motions that I need to read, and we'll need to manage our Zoom and YouTube online presence accordingly. So as we go into closed session, you'll see some changes to the Zoom Outlook, and of course we'll be dropping off the staff and so forth. But let me first start with the motion. So I move that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History enter closed session for the annual performance review of the executive director pursuant to the personnel exemption in Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1. And I do require a second, and we do need to do a roll call vote on this.
Second.
Art has seconded it. Joe, can you walk us through a roll call?
Okay, Carol,
Yes.
Cord,
Yes.
Art,
Aye.
Faye,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Roberto,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and I think we've lost Mukunda.
And how about, we got Barry, okay. And how about Siri?
Oh, I don't see her either.
Okay, so I think I counted 9 ayes on that.
I'll record that.
So at this point, we'll go into closed session, and I've asked Zach to stop the YouTube feed and